Lord. Let's see if I.
Good morning, Dan. Looks like we're still missing a couple of people for quorum, eh?
Yes. Yeah, good morning. Yeah, it looks like, well, so far it's just you. And I guess just one quick note. Michael Samber is no longer on the Ohio City Design Review Committee, as he was appointed by the mayor to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. So he's on still working with us, just in a different role. It's like we need one more for a quorum, and then.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, I'm on a Zoom, a WebEx call, and I can't get sound, and I can't get anyone in IT support. Would you mind running up here and taking a look at this thing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll make sure I get someone.
Looks like We have some applicants here, just waiting on one more committee member, but in the meantime, I can run through our preamble and kind of rules and procedures. And then hopefully by the time we get to calling the meeting to order and roll call, we'll have a quorum. So this is the July 20th, 2023 Ohio City Design Review Committee to go over the virtual meeting regulations and procedures. The meeting shall be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by a voice vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. Committee members will then leave the meeting for the duration of that case discussion. No presentation submissions will be accepted after the deadline. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project and provide some background information if applicable. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through the presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation has concluded, the administrator will read any received comments. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. Please use the raised hand feature. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and vote. After the vote, the applicants may leave the meeting and the administrator will introduce the next project. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once all projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee/administrator reports. After all reports have been heard, the chair will adjourn the meeting. Any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding the projects presented to the committee for review and approval. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours before the start of the meeting. Submissions can be made by email, phone, or mail, or dropping off at our offices here at City Hall. Public comment or submissions made after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Staff will summarize the received comments. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the design review meetings, but there will be no public comment period. So as a reminder, all projects follow the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. All projects are being reviewed for consideration of the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. And the Ohio City Design Review Committee is advisory to the Landmarks Commission. Recommendations by this committee are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action is taken. So that being said, it looks like now I think we do have a quorum. So if Doug, you want to call the meeting to order, I can do roll call.
Okay, we shall call this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Dan, can you please call the roll?
All right, Mr. Frondorf? Ms. Lamb?
Here.
Mr. Lozier? Ms. Marinucci?
Here.
Mr. Talley? And Mr. Wall.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum. So our first case is case number OC 23-06, 2843 Franklin Boulevard. This was previously tabled on May 4th, 2023. It is for a fence installation. So I guess our first action would be to untable, and then we can have the applicant walk us through their presentation.
Good. Can we have a motion to untable, please?
Well, I guess, sorry, before we do that, is there someone here representing this project? I didn't see Kyle.
I am. I'm Miles.
You are? Okay. All right. Thank you, Miles. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
I moved on table.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right. Please call the roll, Dan.
All right. Mr. Frondorf?
Yeah.
Ms. Lamb?
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci?
Yes.
And Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously. So Miles, if you want to walk us through your presentation, just let me know when you want me to advance to the next slide. I guess as a reminder, the committee, this has been seen and tabled several times. So I think we need to take an actual action on it today. Just so it's, there's some definitive motion and action taken. So I guess, yeah, that being said, Miles.
So we were asked at the meeting before last to show cutout sheets. So we've prepared those. Those are here. I don't know if you can go to the next slide. That's our property line. And you can go to the next slide. This is what is currently in the back. We want to run a fence up the property line. We have our insurance agent has asked us to do that from a liability standpoint, from people in the building next door using our gas grill and coming on our property, and we want to get out of that liability. So we want to run a fence up the property line. And if you can go to the next slide, please. This is other fences in the neighborhood that are all, pretty much the same metal type picket fence. And next slide. This is directly across the street from us. That's directly next door to us. Next slide. That's across the street. That's across the street to the right. These are all views from our front porch. So we were asked 2 meetings ago to, at the end of the fence, where we have an elevation grade, to put a post in. And this post, like this, would be painted blue, and it would match the brick pillars that we have on our existing sign in front of our office. The next slide. That's the cut sheet, or I think that's what it's called for this thing. And then the next slide. There it is. So at the last meeting, we were asked, ultimately, if we fenced in the property, what would it look like? So we hired a landscape architect, and this is the design they came up with. So what we want to do is do the property line between our building, Sanford House, and the Rhodes House now. And because the cost of doing this front with a retaining wall and drainage, our first estimate was $80,000. We need to hold off on that this year and put it into our next year's budget. Right now, we're putting all the money that we're making into growing the company. And frankly, that's a person's salary and benefits for the year plus. So, but we can tuck it into our 2024 budget, just not this year. So we want to do the fence between the two properties now, which will stop people from coming across the back of our property. As I said, they're using the gas grill. I have liability there, so we had to shut it off for our tenants. Just our insurance agents just said, put a line of demarcation. So we're going to do that this year. And then next year, we're going to continue on and do, as you can see in this drawing, we'll pay for the retaining wall, have that dug out. We'll go across the front and then down, and then the whole front yard will be fenced in. And I think that's our last slide, unless we did a cutout. Oh, here it is. Yeah, sorry. I don't do this often. I generally work on naming rights of buildings. So this shows where our sign is now. And if you look at the left, all the greenery, which I don't know if you can, I can't do the arrow on it, but that's what'll happen next year. Right. And then this line between the two buildings back is our current, we'll put that fence in now. We're going to put a stairway up for our tenants to be able to cut up if they choose. We're going to move the grill back. And then next spring, we can start on the retaining wall and running the fence back up. So the whole front yard will be fenced in. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's the last slide we have. So yeah, any, I guess, comments from the or questions from the committee?
Yes, is the fence you're going to propose across the front going to sit on top of that retaining wall or behind it?
I don't know. That's up to the fence guy.
Well, not entirely, but it looks, I mean, you're gonna place that brick pier, I presume, in line with where the retaining wall would go. So you're gonna hold that brick pier back that you're gonna use to terminate this. You're gonna pull that back to where the retaining wall would go across the front behind that planting.
Right. So I guess I don't know if that's on I think they said it's probably going to be a sandstone cap across the top. I don't know if it goes on it or behind it into the lawn.
Okay, but I guess the point I'm trying to ask about is that brick pier you're putting in is not up by the sidewalk. It's going to be pulled back.
No, it's pulled back. I can't see the measurements, but the architect came up with, but it's pulled back. The sidewalk is to the left of the greenery.
Mhm.
Looks like a 7 foot setback between the back edge of the sidewalk and the retaining wall
Mhm.
line, it looks like.
Well, we'll deal with the balance of that when you get to it. I just wanted to make sure that, what you're doing now is gonna coordinate with what you say that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to pay for anything twice, right? So,
Now, you also mentioned something about painting the post blue.
yeah, so our building is blue, right? And it was approved by Landmarks Commission and Historical. And our building was built by a guy that was a close friend of Abraham Lincoln's. So we've done everything to keep that. So we had Sherwin-Williams help us match. That's the closest paint they had to the Union Army blue. And if you look on our sign in the existing on the lower, you'll see we painted it to match the building. And if you look in the upper pier that's done by the landscape architect, all of those will match the exact same color of the building.
Okay, so you're going to leave the sandstone cap unpainted, just the brick.
Yeah, the current sandstone caps are painted with the color that we were told to paint it by Landmarks Commission 4 years ago. And I don't know, Sherwin-Williams Laggia or it's the next one up on the color chart from what was called sandstone, but it's the one that they picked.
Okay, but it's not blue. It's not the whole
No,
thing.
the cap it'll match the sandstone. We painted the front lower part of the porch, and the current caps are all painted whatever that Sherwin-Williams color is. All that will
Okay.
match. The blue will match the building blue, and the caps will match the color of our sandstone that we had to add to the front of the building and the porch.
Okay, thank you.
This is our corporate office. We take the look of it very seriously, as you can tell.
That's what I'm struggling with is we have it's broken into two parts, and so we approve now, and then, Mr. Gallagher, this is nothing, I have no reason to doubt exactly what you've told us is all true in your intent, but things may happen, things may change. What assurances do we have? Maybe this is a question for Dan, that if we approve, let's just call it phase one now, that phase two happens in the future.
Well,
Because I think our support
It's
is
a matter of budgeting.
No, I'm not doubting a word you're saying at all. This is a question more of process for Dan, I suppose.
Well, at this point, so it sounds like the proposal in front of us is for the fence between the property lines terminating in a masonry pier. The rest of this is essentially, concept. Unless the committee, I guess could make a recommendation to approve the retaining wall and the entire fence, and then it could be built in phases. I guess
Yes,
there aren't
we prefer
necessarily
that.
any. What's that?
We'd prefer that so we don't have to go through the process again.
Yeah, it'll be up to, I guess, the committee to determine whether there's enough detail here for that. But even with that, I guess if you just approve the fence between the property line, there are, other than, the verbal assurances given here at the meeting, there would be none others that the rest of this would, they wouldn't be legally bound to make it happen. Unless the proposal was to install all of this in a phase system, and that became the approval today. I guess the one question I guess I have, if we're just looking at the fence between the property line, it looks like this pier sits down more engaged with the retaining wall than the fence. If
Yeah,
you were just doing this portion here,
So
is
we'll do that. That'll be up for now. And if you go back to that cut sheet, you'll see they're basically fiberglass, right? So when we do
Okay.
when we do the wall, they have to be made out of brick to support the weight. So this is fiberglass. The ones on our sign right now are fiberglass, I think fiberglass type. They're hollow, and they sit on really a 4x4 post that goes in the ground like a mailbox. So the one now would be that, but when we do the wall, it has to be brick to support the weight of the wall.
Gotcha. So this would be I guess a temporary
Yeah, yeah,
pier that the fence between the property line would terminate in, and then, that would be removed when the retaining wall was installed and the rest of the work was done and
Right.
it'd be replaced with a brick pier at the lower level.
right.
Okay.
And the whole motivation of this is to keep the renters from the Rhodes house from crossing over the lawn into your property. Is that right?
That's for right now, but we also have somebody that has a dog that's a member of my family that lives in the back, and we want the front yard fenced in ultimately because we watch the dog during the day while he's at the firehouse. So ultimately, we want it fenced in. But right now, the budget, we're looking at over 90,000 for all of this. We just don't have it this year unless we don't make an additional hire. That's bad business, right?
Here's why don't we do, here's a proposal. I don't love it, but I think it's practical. Why don't we could approve the fence that runs along the property line there, but stop short of the elevation change, stop short of the hill. And don't install a fiberglass pier there. Let's wait to do all that masonry work until such time as the wall gets built. With on the condition that by the end of July 2024, you come back with the detailed proposal to finish fencing in the entirety of the yard.
Sure. That means I don't have to put the pier in this year, which I'd have to rip out anyway next year. Yeah.
Correct, because I think that would actually look worse. But don't have the fence go all the way to the sidewalk.
No. I know the code's 1 foot away, but
No, not even that. I mean, even further back. I mean, stop it before
Yeah.
the grade change, before the hill. So you don't have a fence that's awkwardly sloping down.
right.
Stop it, whatever that amount of feet is, I'm gonna guess
It's like 7.
feet, whatever. Yeah, fine. And stop it there in its condition, I guess, sir, we're gonna have to go on your good word. That you will come back before us within 1 year's time to complete this.
It's fine. I'm the owner of the building and the company, so my word means a lot around here. And I'm
All right,
known for
Alex,
being-
would you like
Is that
to
a
make
motion?
So the motion is as follows. You can install the fence that we've already discussed along the property line, but it must stop short of the elevation change.
Mhm.
No pier, just terminates. And then the applicant must return within 1 calendar year, let's just say the end of July of 2024, with a proposal to complete the fenced-in yard.
Great, do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Mr. Frondorf, Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Miles, I'll be in touch as far as next steps go. I have to determine whether this, I think we have this scheduled for Landmarks Commission meeting upcoming. I'll have to check the date, but I will email you that confirmation later today.
Great. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Well.
Cheers.
All right, next up, we have case number OC 23-32, 4116 Lorraine Avenue, roof storefront renovation. This was tabled on 7/5/23. Looks like we have the applicant here. So I guess we need to untable this and then can proceed through the presentation.
I'll move from table.
Does somebody have a motion to untable, please?
Yes, I moved
Alex
on.
just made one. Yep. Do we have a second?
Second?
I'll second.
All right, please call the roll, Dan.
All right, Mr. Frondorf, Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the motion to table has passed. So, yes, it looks like we have Dave Ferrante here and Lucas Stabe.
It's Stibe, yep. Hi,
Steib,
everyone.
okay, I apologize.
Yep.
So yeah, if you guys just want to go through a presentation, let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Sure. Thanks for
And-
having us. Sorry, go ahead.
If you want, you could just focus on the parts that we asked you to brief us on this time.
Absolutely. Before we get to that, I want to mention, as was previously mentioned, Dave Ferrante, the owner of the properties on the call, as well as representative from Kuhn Restoration, Matt Siblia, and a representative from the GC on this project, Angle Key Construction, Chad Ferrara, is on here as well, if there's any additional questions. So we can toggle through these first few, I think, pretty quickly because they're repeats. One request was additional exterior photographs, so I've provided those. This was back when it was still Nick's Diner, before the first round of demolition occurred. I have some photos of post-demolition as well, but this is just showing the existing brickwork we're hoping to maintain. The awning is now gone. The sign is now gone. Some side where I could get pictures of the existing fence and the existing side masonry. And then if you keep going, this is some photos of from the existing patio in the back. This is that small portion. We're assuming a much later addition to the building. I think one of the committee members was questioning how that looked on the outside. It's, pretty dilapidated. So we're proposing a complete residing and resheathing of this small addition on the back. This is from the inside of that addition. And the outside. The goal here is to kind of strip off the outside siding, get some proper insulation in there, shore up any structure, new sheathing, new waterproofing, and new exterior siding. And then I think the main question about this was kind of the new overhead glass garage door that's proposed for the back here. So this is the existing condition, and then you'll see it towards the end, our rendering of the proposed garage door. Existing brick patio, the owner's hoping to maintain as much of the existing brick as possible and patch and repair the big gap here in the middle and a little bit along the back. And I think there's one last photograph just kind of depicting, if you keep going, yeah, this is from the alleyway, just showing, existing fencing conditions. There's no real existing sight lines from the alleyway to the patio or the small addition. This was, oh, sorry, go back one more. This was a request from the committee, just more explanation to the masonry restoration. So this was a note sent over by Matt. And as I mentioned, he's also on this call for when we go through this, if there's additional questions regarding the masonry restoration. These are mostly the same slides until we get to A31, I believe. There was just a request of some added detail on how the canopy structure would be attached to the front of the building. So we took a section cut of the storefront, made sure to add a note regarding, any kind of anchoring would be done in the mortar joints, not the brick units themselves. I heard that was a request on another project last time, so I want to make sure we noted that. And just kind of showing general heights, mostly based off existing conditions. So the existing opening in the masonry, we're hoping to maintain that. We have word from the structural engineer that the steel lintel's still good. So we'll basically just be replacing that infill within the existing masonry, and then the new prefab canopy would be attached to the front of that. I think the last bit is just the same. There's a couple more permit sheets here, and then the renderings are the same as last time. There's the inside of the back area with the proposed overhead garage door. There's also a proposed man door to the left. And then from the existing patio looking inward as well. So that's the presentation. I think we made sure we picked up all the requests for additional information. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, owners here, the GC's here, and the restoration specialist is here. We did want to just mention that we've submitted for permit in May. We had discussions with the storefront rebate program and decided not to move forward with that, but they were in support of the project, but just timeline wasn't allowing. So we're here before you guys just to keep our permitting process moving, and we're anxious to begin work.
Matt, can you tell us what the proposed process is for cleaning and repointing? Describe the mortar content and what's going to happen there. I also have a question about the growth, if there, the ivy and such that's growing on the building. Can you address that for us, please?
Yeah, so obviously the side elevation where the CMU is painted, we'll just do a light pressure wash and then they're going to repaint. We'll do minor repointing there, any block replacement that needs to be done. The front side with the brick, and then you have the stone water table or the corners kind of right there at the front. So we'll do, again, light water pressure only. It's not that too dirty. And then we'll do mortar samples. 3 mortar samples is normally what we do for the repointing on the front side, since that will be exposed and not painted. Normally we just use like a type N bag mortar that's pre-colored. Big reason for that is quality control. A lot of times too, then if we need to, we mix 2 different mortars together to get that. Most of the pointing work is where the stone is. The brick's in fairly good shape, so there might be only 2 or 3 days worth of pointing work on the front side of the building. Not much. Again, it's a very small facade as well as it's in fairly good shape. In regards to the growth, I'm guessing for the growth in regards to, you talking about the vines or something?
Yes.
Yeah, those normally, those would just be cut down. You just cut them at the bottom. And then, they just basically kind of wither away, then you just pull them off.
I will mention that the growth you are seeing here is actually on the neighboring structure. Dave doesn't
Oh.
own that building. I think they have a good relationship, and obviously his patio abuts it, so I think they could work on that. But I don't think he'd be responsible for any of the restoration on that building.
So that would be our plan going forward in regards to cleaning as well as the report.
Thank you.
Can you go back to the existing photograph of the rear, please?
This one, or
No, the facing the back of the building. That is okay, yeah. So are you going to use the same opening for your new garage door that is the opening for the sliding glass door presently?
We're going to try and maintain as much of it as possible. It's going to need some reinforcement structurally. So we're going to kind of work within what's opening and try and install a new lintel or a reinforced lintel. But the kind of what you're seeing, the existing corner windows, they're not even really windows, they're kind of plexiglass. Those will be going away. Those will be infilled as part of the restructuring of this bump out.
Okay, and what siding material are you going to use on that?
We're going to be doing a metal siding. It's still TBD, but the hope is to kind of get the something that's kind of a metal look that goes both with the building as well as kind of the concept of the restaurant. So proposing maybe a core 10 or something else, but we're still working with Dave on the exact selection of that metal siding.
Okay.
I-
So this is not viewed from the public right of way, I guess it's not quite as important. Normally, we would want to see what the example of what the selection is, before we approve it. What color is the garage door? Is that going to be like a silver clear anodized? Or is it gonna
It would probably be a dark bronze to match our new storefront material.
Okay. And going back to the storefront, it seems like the new bulkhead on those storefronts is, I don't see a dimension proposed on the height of that, but in the renderings, it looks taller than what is presently there, the original bulkhead. Well, it's maybe not original, but the one that's been there for years.
Right. So it is all based off of original. So if you scroll into just to the left of the south elevation, I think it gives an approximate dimension, or at least calls out the location just there, that dimension line that goes vertical where your cursor was. There's a datum for the floor level and then a datum for the existing opening of the masonry right there if you scroll in.
I can't really
Oh,
zoom.
sorry.
It looks like the entire storefront system it looks like 10 feet even from grade to the masonry opening. But I think, Doug, what you're asking about is the height of this bulkhead.
Correct.
It
Oh,
looks like
understood.
roughly 3 feet, I would say, whereas at least from the photos, the current one ends at about the top of this piece of sandstone.
Yeah.
And then
I
I
would say-
apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting when this was originally presented. Is the committee also looking at the proposed canopy and signage, or are either of those elements coming back separately?
I would assume the signage would come back separately. There'll be a sign vendor that goes in for their own sign permit. What we're looking for here is whatever's necessary to get us to the next step of the building permit process for the renovation to begin.
And so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the canopy. It looks like the bottom of the canopy where it meets the building is in the, masonry and steel lintel beam height so that you're not gonna be lowering the opening at all by introducing that
No,
canopy.
that's correct. Yeah, we definitely want to work with that steel, the existing steel lintel, the, I guess you could call it the soffit material. We're proposing a wood or a wood look that would be on the bottom of that canopy. That would essentially be flush with the bottom of that steel lintel. And then a similar look would happen on the interior. So it feels like that canopy is kind of sliding through the existing opening, both on the inside and the outside.
I see, that's where you have that soffit shown on the section on the inside, correct?
That's correct. And that soffit is purely due to the fact that we want to bring it back to the original center entry that actually almost has a little vestibule that pushes in. So that's to catch the bump inward of that entry vestibule.
Well, I would lower the height of that bulkhead. I know you've got a back of a booth right up against it, but it would still look better from the outside if that bulkhead were a little bit shorter. I don't think that would bother anything, so you'd be looking through the glass at the upper part of the booth back, you know, but I think it's more important to get the bulkhead height correct.
Understood.
And what is the facing of that canopy? Is that metal, wood? I don't
Maybe
think it's,
the front face of it would be metal, likely to be aluminum, I would say. But
Yeah,
a dark bronze color to match the storefront as well.
yeah, the note says new prefabricated canopy with tiebacks to existing masonry mounted bolts to be placed in existing mortar joints.
and is there a notation about the stanchions? Are those steel rods, or does it say anything about them? There's a notation with an arrow pointing to.
Those are the tiebacks. Those are what would be going back
Okay.
to the existing mortar joints, be anchored back to the existing mortar joints in the masonry.
Okay.
So jumping back to an earlier question about kind of what we're before you requesting, you know, I think that's part of my question is what would be required for us to move forward in through building and housing, you know, to get this renovation permit, knowing that obviously a sign permit would be forthcoming and would have to come before you guys. What do we need today in order to get a building permit in motion?
So today you'd need a, I guess, you know, there's a couple paths. If you got a recommendation for approval from this committee, we'd schedule you for an upcoming Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. You would need an approval there by the Landmarks Commission for a certificate of appropriateness, and that would give me the authority to sign off on your permit application. You know, could be approved as presented or with conditions. The other, you know, another option is if this committee were to disapprove it, I would, you know, you could still proceed to the Landmarks Commission. I would share this committee's comments and their vote with the Landmarks Commission. And again, that, you know, the decision would be theirs whether or not to grant the certificate of appropriateness. And then, you know, tabling is the third option, but that doesn't, you know, you wouldn't be, you'd be coming back to this committee if you agreed to tabling it today, but.
Understood. Thanks for the explanation.
On the front elevation, you show transom windows. I assume they're windows, but they're shaded. I don't know if that just to indicate there's shadow under the canopy, or are they some other material?
No, there'll be a material on the inside. So part of the kind of design motif of this is obviously barbecue bar and grills. So the bar design, some of the interior metal features have a kind of metal mesh incorporated into them. We're hoping to incorporate that on the interior of the transoms as well.
Okay, I see. But so what you'll see from the outside is glass.
Correct. Correct. Yep.
So I guess I'd like some support or feedback from other committee members, what you think about that bulkhead height. Do you think it's okay the way it is, or would you like to see the height adjusted in some way?
mean, I think it could come down a little bit without too much effort. I mean, the booth could even be, the back of the booth could even be shortened if you don't want that to show through the window there. Yeah, yes, I could go along with that recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I think we still should see the ultimate siding material and color choice on this, but I guess I would be willing to entertain a motion that says we could approve the rest of it, but they have got to come back to show us the actual siding material at a later date, or at least have it to show to landmarks next week. How does everyone feel about that?
Yeah, I think if it's presented to landmarks, I would feel comfortable. Also, can you make sure that the door that's on there goes to a good home or a salvage shop or something?
Sure. Yeah, it is. It is a nice door.
It's a nice door. Somebody might want that.
Yep. The handle's cool too.
I apologize, I may have missed it, but are we keeping is the proposal keeping a solid door on the front entry?
Oh, that was another request. So we did put glass in the top portion of the door there, both for sight lines, and I think it was kind of the preference of aesthetically as well.
I'm not opposed to the height of the, what are we calling it, bulkhead knee wall. The way you have it presented, I'm okay with the suggestion to lower it slightly, but it doesn't, I'm personally not bothered by that.
I appreciate that. I'm not going to make it a sticking point. You know, we're obviously open to suggestions. I will say that, you know, the booth design is all based off of kind of, you know, industry and restaurant standards, you know, for usability. And we just feel that it is a much more integrated look to have everything kind of aligned and not have to look at the back of a booth when you're looking through the windows. I do understand the kind of the concern about the height, you know, but I just think it's going to look a lot nicer if everything is kind of flush and integrated.
If we were to, Doug, just summarize what you had said to make a motion, would my colleagues be comfortable with the suggestion of lowering it, or would you want that to be a contingency of the approval?
I would make it contingent. My preference would be to see it lowered, you know, if it's 3 feet now, which it doesn't say exactly. If you dropped it another 4 inches, I think it would look a little better. Wouldn't mind if we back being higher behind that by a few inches. But nobody else feels that way besides me. I'd be happy to go along with leaving it as proposed.
If anyone else does not feel strongly, then I can make a motion.
Okay, go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, motion to approve as presented with the consideration or suggestion to lower the what are we calling it? The storefront paneling in the front, like 4 or so inches, and to return. No. Well, I guess also, but present the color and siding, final color and siding decision to Landmarks Commission at the next meeting, or return with that information if not available for the meeting. Is that conclusive? Inclusive?
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Dan, please call the roll.
All right. Mr. Frendorf,
Yes.
oh, sorry. Ms. Land,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I will be in touch but when we have you scheduled for the Landmarks Commission meeting, and we'll get you those details.
Great. We'll make sure we have the siding selected by that time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, next up, we have case OC 23-37, 4016 Bridge Avenue. This is solar panel installation. Looks like we have Caleb Darney here. This is a new solar panel company, at least I think to our committee. So I know we've seen several of these in the past. But yeah, this is, I guess, I know we've given a lot of feedback on solar panels, but this will be new to them. So, but they did provide us a measurement from the front of the roof to the solar panels, so that should be helpful.
We've done multiple projects within Cleveland. We've just never done something within the historic district. So we've done some work through the building and housing department, just nothing in this specific location yet.
Dan, were they provided the requirements for the historic district with solar panels that we've reviewed with others, or not yet?
Not yet. I think this is like, yeah, this is the submission they made, so we didn't really provide them any feedback at this point. We're just I'd like to develop a set of standards, I guess, with you guys as a committee, just that would make it, I guess, easier for applicants, and then also potentially, you know, give us the authority to kind of administratively approve ones that met certain guidelines. But
that would be great.
Something we're working on that I hope to be able to bounce it off you guys sometime soon. We just don't have it quite yet. So.
Okay, and what's the name of the applicant presenting today?
It's Gemini Solar.
Caleb.
We have Caleb. He's here.
Oh, Caleb. Okay, I'm gonna drop. Wait, is there a chat on this one? I don't know.
Yes, it should be under more in the bar usually, or something. I guess it depends on how you have it set up, but.
Caleb, thank you for the presentation. I think it's pretty clear. After we've seen, I think, one or two of these presentations every meeting for the past couple, 3 or 4 times. So we see a lot. The requirements, I can't figure out my chat feature. So it's the requirements per the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, which is what we as a board are tasked with. I'll preface this with, we are very much, I think, personally and professionally in alignment with alternative energy. However, we are tasked with meeting these criteria.
Sure.
So it states the solar panels installed on a historic property in a location that cannot be seen from the ground will generally meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. So what we've been asking as a board is that we kind of try to stay away from, ideally, like the first half of the frontmost massing of a roof line. Occasionally, usually there's a chimney or something kind of like in that front half or third that we will say, okay, let's try to stay behind the chimney. And also it's obviously property dependent, because, for example, if a street is or a house is on a corner and then you see the full visibility, that's a very different consideration. This one, I'm very familiar. I live a block down. So this one doesn't have a ton of visibility, in my opinion, from the street. However, I think just consistently across the board, we've been asking applicants to concentrate their load to that. If you go back to the roof plan, Dan, yeah. And and so most of the houses in our neighborhood have multiple roof massings like this one does. So for the most part, when I say back half, I'm saying take that front massing that has the larger cluster and right there, like half of that. So I personally would not have any issue with the backmost part. But yeah, so if it's possible, ideally, to get the load that you're able to. We also last meeting had a recommendation where if they were able to move a bathroom vent, which seemed like a lot easier than compromising half of the number of panels, if they were able to move one vent, and then they were able to meet their usage needs. in that given area. So unless anyone else has anything to add, or you want to kind of get into details here, I think that would, if you and your client are agreeable to maybe just reconfiguring or seeing what kind of configuration you can get with that in mind, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, sure. I can reach out to Mr. Coleman. I'm sure he would be open to at least, following the regulations to some point. I don't think he would have any problem with that. So I can reach out to him in the engineering department and see. So you're okay with just trying to fully understand here. It looked like just that first half of that first front facing roof is what you were looking to be just completely blank.
Yes, ideally.
Okay, that would work for me. We usually do cover the conduit and everything. I know some places have issues with conduit being a different color. So if that's anything that we need to paint or put in a specific place, that would be acceptable as well. We've done that in the past with separate historic districts. So that would be completely fine. I can reach out to Mr. Coleman and the engineers, and we can get that layout changed.
Okay.
And
So then, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you want to make a motion that if they can meet those proposed changes, you'd recommend approval so that if they come back to staff, we can handle it then? Or do you guys want to see it after the changes have been made?
I mean, I feel like we've seen so many that I would be comfortable with that because you know pretty clearly what we're looking for. So if my colleagues are okay with that, I'll defer to them.
All right, well, Antonia, would you like to make that a motion?
Yeah, does anyone dissent from that idea before I make one?
Yes,
Because the others,
after that ridge line on the back part, correct?
I suggested that they can stay within that frontmost massing, but the second half of the frontmost massing, like, yep, where the cursor is. This one is definitely less visible. It's right up against the neighbor. I think there's maybe 6 feet between. It's where Angelo's beverage shop on the corner is.
Right, then yes, then I'll go, yes, agree.
Okay, great. So motion to approve with the condition that the applicant reconfigure onto the back half of the front roof massing and beyond, and to be approved by staff, reviewed by staff.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Dan, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Fundorf? Ms. Lamb?
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci?
Yes.
And Mr. Wall?
Yeah.
And,
All right, Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Sorry, Nia, go ahead.
no, Caleb, if you have future work in the neighborhood, in the district, if you can just keep that in mind, as hopefully we will have some sort of standard that Dan mentioned, but if you could keep that as your litmus for future proposals, that would be great.
No problem. I'll go ahead and add that to our kind of list of regulations we have for each area. I'll make sure we do that first next time. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have, looks like Steve Jennings here to present case OC 23-38, 2885 Detroit Avenue, Saucy Brew Works expansion. Yeah, I guess just as a note before he walks through, this is, I believe, scheduled for PetBot, the committee next week. So they'll be looking at it then. But yeah, Steve, if you want to walk us through the presentation.
Yep. So, this is obviously the proposed rendering of what we're proposing. The next few slides show the existing conditions. So that's probably a good spot to start. So you can see the top two photos show the West 29th Street elevation as it currently is. So there's really two tenants previously. So you had Saucy Brew as on the left side of the building, and then there was title boxing on the right, which is moved out and that's currently vacant. And I mean, I guess from my perspective, you see that, you know, what's now a vacant tenant kind of looks, you know, a little discontinuous from the rest of the building. So that's kind of what we're trying to improve, is make it a little more cohesive with, you know, the whole building. And you can see the kind of corner view at the bottom left of that space. Next slide. These are the surrounding properties. So the top left is across Church Street. Top right is the kind of diagonal corner. The bottom left is part of what we're proposing to add patio space to. So that's on the north side of Church Street. And then the bottom right is the opposite side of 29th Street. Next slide. So really this is, there's a total of 8 bays that are all pretty much identical on the existing building. So the work we're proposing is on the last 2 bays on the right side. And again, it's really just trying to match the you know, rest of the building that's existing to the left. So we're continuing the canopy, same profile, same color for those 2 bays. The storefront will remain the same, except on the very last right bay, we're proposing to add a garage door similar to the second and third bay on the existing space. And then you can see in the site plan, we're proposing to continue the patio, same dimensions as the existing patio, all the way down West 29th, and then wrapping the corner onto Church. And then kind of stepping back where you have telephone poles, which is what was done on the existing patio as well. So I don't know if you want to stay on this page or go back to the proposed rendering, and then let me know what your questions are.
I can't tell if you're proposing awnings on the Church Street side or not.
We are not.
Okay, thank you.
On the on the Church Street site, there are currently, actually, if you go to the next slide, I think it's depicted there. Yeah, right there with the yellow wall. So there's currently a bunch of other things there. There's 2 bike racks, and there's that bench, which I believe is placed on top of 2 cut down former utility lines. What happens to those? Do those remain? Do they get removed?
So on the kind of this existing elevation, I guess first off, we are proposing to keep the existing mural. The bike, I think there's bike racks both on this side and the other side. We are still showing a space for those. I'm kind of, I guess if you go to the last slide with the site plan, and we're showing those adjacent to the door. So where that kind of opening in the patio is, we're proposing those get moved up to that area. And, you know, I guess I'm not sure about the bench. I guess we weren't aware of utility, so we were just proposing the bench goes away, but I guess I'm not aware of what.
No, it's not those are old utility poles that were cut down to like
Oh, okay.
1 or 2 feet height, and then a bench placed on top of it. At least that's my recollection.
Yeah, so that would just be removed, and it would just be flush concrete across there.
Now, currently, there's the garage door, an actual garage door, an actual utility door immediately to the east there. And often the sidewalk is in that area. There's pallets piled up or a dumpster or other manufacturing detritus. Where is that stuff going to go now?
Now, we're not proposing any change. I guess if you stay on that slide with the yellow wall, that's all to the right of that man door. So we are only proposing improvements from the left to the left of that man door. So the kind of, the service garage door would remain as is, and they would use that as they currently do.
I think on the church side, you're showing me see if I can- It's a total of, I think, 10.5 feet out from the wall. I'm reading that right? Um, And the other side is 7 feet 4 inches. My recommendation, I think, would be to keep the width the same, and to not encroach more on the church side. So keep the fence distance from the building the same as it is on 29th there at about 7 feet 4 inches.
I actually think that there's a 7'4" at the narrowest, but then there's another 3'2". So it is 10'6" on both sides, because I had the same thought, but it's I think it's the same depth on both sides.
Yeah, I think it is very close if it's not exactly the same. And the same with the remaining sidewalks, very similar too. You can see it's just under 6 feet on the West 29th side, and it's just over 6 feet on the church side.
I see that notation now. Okay.
Yeah, I had the same thought. That was my same comments or questions from Alex, where what happens to the bike racks, because they're definitely utilized. And also, I know this is not an architectural thing, but from an operational thing, there definitely is a lot of congestion from their production onto the sidewalk. So hopefully that will not. Ideally, there might be ways to help alleviate that from their production standpoint. If we're encroaching on the sidewalk more, right now it's a really wide sidewalk, which is nice, but if we encroach on that sidewalk and then also we're getting encroached from their production overflowing out into the street, maybe just that's something we can ask the business owners to be more mindful of. Something that's not on the plan is how close these corner fences get to the actual crosswalk locations. Like, do we have any?
Yeah, I had the
Is there a way
same,
to?
especially if the bike racks get moved into that
Yeah.
cutout area. Yeah.
So it's like, are we, where those, like where the little inset is, where the existing utility pole is, we have existing crosswalk. I don't know what the technical term is, like where they rope slam. Oh my God. Sorry, there's not enough coffee in the world for me this week.
Little
Where
bumpy
they
things.
yeah, those things. The accessibility,
So there's curb cuts.
Yeah, those things. Are we encroaching? How close are those points getting to the two that are there? That's the question.
Yeah, I guess that's currently not shown on the drawing. We can add those and make sure that, the kind of where that recessed area at the corner is, avoids the curb cuts.
We just get so much pedestrian. There's a ton of car access here and there's a ton of pedestrian access here. So at any given time, there's lots of people biking, walking, tons of dogs, kids, and cars at this awkward kind of four-way stop at this like disjointed intersection. So if we are not, I just want to be mindful of not encroaching the crosswalks or putting people in a position where they're having, not able to have clear passage.
I have the exact same concerns 100%. And is there a way to address that by lessening you show a row of 3 tables up against the building on the church side, maybe lessening that and shortening the amount of the encroachment on the public right of way? Just back that off a foot or 2 feet maybe?
On you're talking about the
Yield more for the public access and take away that one line of tables there, that just 3 tables, a total of 6 seats.
Or another way to do it would be to take your little diagonal section of fence that goes across there and maybe pull it out a little bit, but extend that diagonal so that it provides more circulation all around.
Right. Yep.
This isn't the purview.
Go ahead.
This isn't necessarily the purview of this board, but does this proposal require any variances for the sidewalk?
Not that I'm aware of. We have, as I think Dan mentioned, we have the PetBot meeting next week.
Okay.
I assume there's a, sidewalk encroachment permit that is probably similar to what they have currently for the existing patio.
And I know if you're extending this down, I think this reads as 5'10" from the curb. I think code says 6 feet. So yeah, that's something they'll bring up at PetBot, I'm sure. Sorry, we have fruit flies in here. I'm not crazy.
Steve, yeah, if you take our suggestion, then that would address the code issue as well.
Yep.
It sounds like. And on the variance question, again, not our purview, but do you know, because the increased seating, does that draw a parking variance as well? Or, do you know that?
So that has not come up. But this is a separate space. So the interior of that space is being utilized as a separate space from the, the rest of the Saucy Brew. This would be like a separate event space. So the number of people is based on that space. It's not added onto the other space. But yeah, that hasn't came up yet.
Oh, I see. So will this space functionally and practically be separate from Saucy Brewworks? In other words, will Saucy Brewworks customers be dining at the tables and chairs we see on our screen here?
No, so this would be a space they could rent out separately. So if you were holding an event, you could rent this space for your event.
Oh, okay. I understand now.
Well, it does introduces a change of use then from the assembly space. So they'll be, in zoning reviews, they'll be recalculating the right space on that. I mean, you didn't have to show it to us, but I'm sure you've got a scenic plan for the interior that.
Yeah.
Are we treating this as concept review? Given some of these unknowns for the meeting next week with?
That is, I
City?
guess that is up to you. This is what we have. I think Steve was hoping for final review if I understand, but if there are additional details that you guys want or want to wait until PetBot has time to chime in, that may affect the plan. You could
That's
see
my-
if Mr. Jennings
my-
is willing to table it or pass it on.
I guess ideally what we'd like is to get your feedback on obviously the building and canopy, and then the patio, and we can incorporate your comments for as well as the PetBot comments when we go to the landmarks meeting. But yeah, I guess for the scope of work, we'd like to try and keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, I understand. Because this is a separate use or company even, do we want, I was viewing this as just a continuation, but now I wonder, do we want, because it reads, the building continues to read as one usage. I don't know if we want to look at yeah, I would like to think about that actually.
I
don't know.
Steve, to give you feedback, I'm fine with the proposed changes to the building itself in terms of the front canopy and the garage door front, meaning the 29th side continuation. My question for the canopy you're proposing on the Church Avenue side is just the attachment method of that canopy to the historic brick.
Yeah, I think we would have to have some type of through bolts that would have, there'd be steel on the inside of the wall. And then, yeah, you would have to go through because that's a solid masonry wall.
Yeah, we always would require that you are putting those through bolts through the mortar joints rather than the brick. So we can space out that. And typically we do ask for a section cut, but I think if you are agreeable to either showing that to landmarks or specifying it on the drawings for landmarks.
Yep, that makes sense.
And I think my overall preference, just because this is the corner is very just so well trafficked, I would be fine with moving you guys ahead for the building changes, but ask to come back after you have that meeting with the city for the final fence line. And showing the details of the sidewalk ramps, and maybe more specific. I don't see the bike racks on here. I'll take your word, but see how that comes into play. So bike racks and sidewalk ramps.
Yes, I would
Looks-
support that.
I would agree
Looks
with
like,
It would
looks
go
like-
along with that.
looks like Jessica from Landmarks office has her hand up.
Quick question. Have you reached out to our public art coordinator regarding changes to the side with the mural on it? If you're adding a canopy that will be impacting the existing mural?
I was not aware of anyone to coordinate with, and I have not contacted anyone.
We can send you their contact information.
Okay.
Steve, I would also request that when the canopy is installed or when work occurs on this Church Avenue side, at some point the mural was patched and the yellow paint did not get matched correctly. If that could be corrected, that would be well appreciated. It's just, I'm looking at it right now. My office overlooks this wall, so it's always bothered me the last few years.
Okay.
And Steve, one thing, one additional is, would you or the owner be willing to consider planting trees, street trees there? On the other side of the street, there's, I think, 4 trees that were put in, similar sidewalk depth. I think that would go a long way to making this more beautiful area, because there's a lot of black on black, a lot of black fence, black awnings, black building. I think some trees, some street trees would go a long way to dressing this up a little bit and providing the shade that you're seeking with the awnings.
I mean, I can ask them that. Are you saying on both 29th and Church, or one or the other?
Preferably both, but I think especially 29th.
Alex, that I typically like trees. I think that might impact their 6-foot clearance that's required by code though, because I think they would have to have 6-foot clearance around the trees. So if you put kind of a tree in the middle of the sidewalk, then they'd end up with less than 3 foot. I'm not sure. I think that's something you could ask PEPOT about, and they could give you more guidance on it.
Yeah,
I think
the jukebox across the street from you there, they operate a patio. I couldn't tell you the dimensions out front, but there are trees in close proximity. So
Gotcha.
I do think it's worth a strong look at it.
Yeah, we can definitely bring that up at the PetBot meeting and see what the requirements are.
Yeah, and as you see in the image on the bottom right there, you have those 4 trees on the opposite side of the street.
Okay.
Would someone care to make a motion then?
Motion to approve as presented with the condition of,
Approve the building additions and then omit
yeah,
the sidewalk part of
yeah,
it.
I was gonna say motion to approve the changes to the building itself with the requirement to bolt that awning through mortar joints, not historic brick. And then condition to return with the final fence line proposal and site plan details for the exterior of the project, the sidewalk intervention. That
All
clear?
right. Very good, Antonia. Do we have a
I'm
second?
trying. I'm trying today.
Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right, Dan, please call the roll.
All right. Sorry, just trying to get the whole motion down. Mr. Frondorf. Lan,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Steve will be in contact about when you can proceed I guess for at least, I don't know if you want to proceed with the building portion through landmarks and come back for the railing and those details, or we can talk, you know.
I think we're currently scheduled for in August for landmark. So if we keep that, we would probably could come back to Ohio City before that.
Okay, that works. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good day.
And I guess before we adjourn, just wanted to, I guess, let you guys know. So we're anticipating a submission from 45 West for our next Landmarks Commission meeting. If it's, I know Nia and Landmark staff and OCI staff talked with Chad, and I guess it was just Chad last week or 2 weeks ago. And I guess if it's significantly different from what the committee has previously seen, we'll be bringing it back through you guys, so you can see it again and you know, provide input on it. There's also, you know, if it's significantly different, I imagine it would go through the OCI's public process again, co-organize all that. But at this point, we're not exactly sure what we're going to see. So
Nate and I, Dan, were you in that meeting?
yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, last week. I don't know.
Yeah,
when it
yeah,
was, but
okay.
yeah.
I would expect like a full, I mean, what they were, you know, optioning was a completely different site plan, so.
Yeah, so if they do, you know, if they do come forward with that, then you know, we'd be, you guys would get another crack at it essentially.
Mm.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't available for that
It
session,
was,
but
yeah, it was last minute, and I apologize. They, yeah, they wanted, yeah, I guess they wanted more of a charrette, and that's why I kind of was trying to see who was available, and
I think I was the only member
yes,
available.
yeah.
Hopefully
But
I
I think
did, hopefully
you
I,
provided good input.
I,
Yeah, hopefully,
I
I guess
think
the committee will
I,
decide.
yeah, I hope I think, it was I think I repped as well, so hopefully.
well, I'm happy to hear they're open to some significant changes because I think, you know, whatever it is, hopefully it'll be for the better.
Yeah, I think I guess based on what, you know, the kind of rough sketches we saw last week, I'm optimistic. I think if they proceed down that path, I think it'll make for a much better project. So, but yeah, we'll you know, that one's ongoing, and we'll keep you posted.
Great. I think they've made significant strides in some ways with their design, but I think the biggest thing they were unwilling to do was make less of it.
Yeah, so I'm very curious at this point.
All right, I guess that concludes our agenda for today. So we will adjourn this official meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee.
All right, thank you all.
All right, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.